Staring death in the face, all my mistakes have got a hold on me again.
Here we go, another day, another fork in the road. I never know who to trust. Will someone just tell me which way to go?
And I need a sign,
I need a miracle. I need to know that this is possible. I just failed so many times.
is there any way that I can make it right?
God, if you're there, I need to hear you now.
Come back to me, love, I forgive you. Oh, how I've missed you. Just know every time you run, I'll be right here waiting. This is no ordinary love.
Listen up, listen up.
This is no ordinary love.
Listen up, this is unconditional.
I'm so afraid to admit that you're real, 'cause I'm afraid of what I might feel when your words start to come to life. It brings my demons into the light, but
I know you're here. I shiver as you whisper in my ear. Child, have no fear. Come back to me, love, I forgive you. Oh, how I miss you. Just know every time you run, I'll be right here waiting.
come back to me, love, and I hope you know I'm always with you, and I forgive you.
All right, welcome back to the Death by Tyranny podcast. It's my motherfucking birthday. So we're going to talk about what I want to talk about. What do I want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about, everything that's going on in the world today and why people are, for whatever reason, putting up a veil of false belief and that this country it's okay. We will carry on and continue to be what this country was meant to be. Well, in my personal opinion, we are no longer the country we were meant to be. We are far past a civil war. We are led by one group of people. The liberal, Democrat, whatever you want to call it, they hold almost all the highest positions in the federal government. And you have the people who believe them and are one with them. And then you have the people that are just too stupid and they get brainwashed. And even the normal ones that aren't brainwashed, they go to the voting booths and they vote for whoever CNN told them to, or The View, or whoever else they watch on TV. Because the liberals also have control of Hollywood. They have control of the media sources. They have control of social media. And I hear a lot of conservatives, Republicans, 2A supporters speak about what our forefathers' intention was when it comes to cases that make it to the Supreme Court, what our constitutional rights are and what they are intended to be. Yet they seem to forget. You hear a lot of them say things like, I'm bipartisan, I'm not political at all, I don't care, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. But yet when the Democrats come for their rights, and they do often, they like to say things like, well, you're not going to take my guns, we'll vote you out in November. Well, in the spirit of our forefathers, if that's how we're going to keep this mindset of American tradition alive, keep in mind that those same forefathers went to war with, at the time, the most powerful empire in the world over taxes. So now could you imagine what they would have done if that same empire would have come for their guns, would have came for their right to defend their property, their loved ones, and themselves? They probably would have sped up the process to going to war. And even if you don't see the attack on our Second Amendment as something that we should be dragging motherfuckers out of Congress by their hair, then look at our tax system. Look at it, what is being done to our tax dollars. Just alone today, Nancy Pelosi cost the taxpayers about $90 million. For what? To flex for her party. Some even say to flex for her country. But here's the thing. The chips in Taiwan are not for Americans. We are forced to buy them for the things that we live our everyday lives with. But if we would have had a strong president, an America first president, those same chips would have already be being built in a factory in America, at the very least South America. In fact, why not both? Since we're going the way of technology, I'm sure there is no abundance of chips for vehicles and gaming systems and electronics. Why not build them here and in South America? And along with those factories and those chips being built in South America, we can then improve the lives that the Democrats say they want to improve down in Mexico. So they are more led to believe that their lifestyle in Mexico can be better. At least good enough to the point where they aren't risking their lives and their children illegally crossing the border. And we have to stop believing that the Democrats are for diversity, inclusion. They are not. They want to take the Second Amendment away from 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds, yet they want to allow 16-year-olds to vote. Why do they want 16-year-olds to vote? Well, they want them to vote because they're more easily manipulated. They know that they have reached a point in their party where nothing that they do as a political party is good for the American people. In fact, it's the complete opposite. So you can't own guns when you're 18, 21, but you can go die for your country. And at the same time, we're going to allow people that aren't even citizens of this country to vote. And we're going to lower that age so that we can manipulate their minds through Netflix and CNN and scare them and viruses. I've not seen one crumb of evidence that the Democrat Party actually loves the American people. I've not seen any evidence that they work for the American people. What Nancy Pelosi did today put every single citizen of the United States in jeopardy. What Joe Biden has done, sending $40 billion over to Ukraine with plenty of money to follow that. Who is that for? We're clearly in a recession. I don't know too many people that believe we are not in the recession right now. In fact, if we're going by non-manipulated standards, we were actually very close to a depression. Not seen in my lifetime. Every day I wake up and it's a little bit worse. And yet the same conservatives that say they won't take the guns, the same conservatives that want to put all their hopes and dreams and wishes in children's future, depending on November's election or 2024's election. These are the same conservatives that speak about tyranny. And what exactly do you consider to be tyranny? because at this point, that's pretty much all the Democratic Party is doing. Just a few days ago, the assault weapon ban passed the House. It wasn't going to pass the House, but Nancy Pelosi got a few more Democrats to vote on her side for the assault weapon ban. And the reason they weren't going to initially side with Nancy Pelosi is because in that bill for an assault weapon ban, that would ban pretty much everything, down to Glock 19s. Almost everyone I know that owns a gun at least has a Glock 19. But the way she got them to get on board with her assault weapon ban was they did not like that the bill put aside money for law enforcement in inner cities and more training for law enforcement. Because, you know, if you're going to take our rights away to defend ourselves, then shouldn't the other side of that coin be you're going to protect us? But instead of protecting us while stripping us from our ability to protect ourselves, she took the money out of the bill that was going to go to the police so that the Democrats would side with her bullshit assault weapon ban. So we're at a point in this country where they're taking our rights and they're not even offering safety. That should scare some of the Democrats that vote for Nancy Pelosi and people alike. That has always been the deal, right? The government will keep you safe. Well, now they're not only not keeping you safe, they're making it to where even the highest of middle-class citizens can't afford the lifestyle that they work their asses off for and that they deserve. Instead, they want to get on TV and tell you about how horrible you are because you've had the privilege to be born white. And there's those that say federal elections don't even matter. How they don't matter, I don't know. That we should be focused on local elections. Well, in those same Democrat-ran cities, their local level is even worse. California is passing bills that illegal immigrants can vote in the local elections out there. Not that California wasn't a shithole already. Not that people are literally fleeing from that country to the point where they're making it untenable in other states because they're raising the property tax, because they're moving out so fast. I live in Ohio, miles and miles away from California, yet still, even here, we are seeing California residents sell their property, probably for a loss, to come out here and raise up our property tax. While every day they offer more to the people who decide to be unemployed, to manipulate them to vote for them, then they are packed full in these cesspools they call cities. And so the elections don't even really matter at this point. You can have 90% of a state vote for a Republican, and as long as those shitholes, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, as long as those shitholes vote blue, we'll get a Democrat in office. The system is broken. Taxes are high. They're abusing our tax money. They're stripping us of our Second Amendment. They've long since been censoring us. So we have no First Amendment. We have no Second Amendment. Now they're beefing up the ATF and making them do unthinkable things like come to your house for multi-gun purchases and check up on you. Scanning firearm purchasers' information at FFLs while the FFL is literally recording them, telling them they can't do that. It's against the law to even try to make a registry. You don't think that the ATF has a registry of all of us? And at the very least, they have a registry of the people that have been forced to pay even more taxes to own things that their God-given rights give them the ability to own. They get put on the NFA. You don't think they're tracking that? The process of the NFA is that you have to contact the sheriff of your town that you're leaving, and you have to contact the sheriff of the state or city or whatever that you're going to if you're even going to move that NFA item. How's that for tracking? And now the newest trend is people, conservatives, a lot of veterans, for whatever reason, are coming on social media and telling people, don't say things that are going to get you in trouble with the federal government, because they're watching, they're listening. They're already coming door to door. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. At what point do those same people that just sentences ago said they would fight and die for the freedoms of the citizens of this country, now we're supposed to not even say what's the right thing to do on social media? So my vote doesn't matter because the illegal immigrants and the manipulated brainwash retards in the inner city vote Democrats in, and even if they don't win, they can just fuck all the elections up and move some numbers around, and boom, they're in office anyway. So politics are gone. Although the people that are in politics keep telling us that the only way to win is by the elections, by the voting process. In the same breath, they tell us that the last election was a fraud. The veterans and the Second Amendment people say that there's tyranny going on every day. But we're not supposed to pick up arms against the federal government? So what exactly are we supposed to do? The voting process is broken. The Democrats are running rampant, destroying suburbs, cities. I'm pretty sure they're already destroying the rural areas with all the bullshit they make our farmers jump through. And when they don't jump through the loops, they just take the land from them and sell it to China. What Nancy Pelosi did today was irresponsible because she could have sparked World War II against a country that could probably kick our ass right now. But for what it's worth, I don't think China would go to war with us right now because they already own us. Why would they destroy their own shit? 2/3 of our farmland is owned by China. All of the wealthy people, at least wealthy enough to where you can't even fathom the amount of money they have, they're owned by China. Elon Musk, owned by China. Hollywood, owned by China. Actually, Hollywood is, like in technical terms, owned by China. They own all the film houses out there. Why do you think it's a big deal when China gets upset about what we put in our movies? Because they fucking own the shit. So they want to enjoy it. They want to get their money's worth. We're not going to go to war with China because China owns us. We're not going to vote out all the rhinos and Democrats because it's all fake. It's broken. And all the people that say they won't take our guns and they won't stand for tyranny aren't going to do a fucking thing because they can't even get on a camera and say we should be chopping motherfuckers' heads off right now. Instead, they're telling other conservatives that are brave enough to get on here and say we should put a bullet in a couple of politicians' heads not to say that. I truly do fear the future for my children. And normally when a grown-ass man fears something for their child, they do something about it. Yet 99.8% of conservatives, veterans, gun supporters, Second Amendment advocate, all of them are doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we put a couple of good Supreme Court justices in the Supreme Court. The Democrats can change that tomorrow. They can get rid of the nuclear option tomorrow. It's not that they are afraid to do something because they will lose votes. They're just biding their time. They're biding their time until we're looking this way, and they know they can do whatever the fuck they want, and they will. And I know that because they have. Heaven forbid a natural disaster happen like Hurricane Katrina. Heaven forbid a attack on home soil happen like 9/11 with Joe Biden in office. Not only would the act or event be tragic itself, but the aftermath for years would be devastating because it would be mishandled. They don't even let us know things that we can easily find out on Google. There are a lot of liberals that think we sent Ukraine $40 billion, not knowing that more than half of that $40 billion stayed in the United States and was dispersed amongst politicians and people in the industrial war machine. And then I'm sure the other, 1/3 of that money went to this asshole that calls himself a leader. And the people that are leading the charge in Ukraine right now, they're not good people. Those aren't the people that are related to Americans that call them running in fear. Those citizens over there are fighting for their lives. They've already lost their country. While the leaders and the high up people in the military over in Ukraine are fucking partying. I heard someone say that they're surprised that, what is it, Zelensky? I don't even know the fucker's name. Whoever says he's in charge of Ukraine over there, they're, what is it, a president? What, I don't even know what the fuck they call him. That he'll be living in the United States within the next 2 years. And I don't doubt that. And he probably has enough money from us, the taxpayers, to be able to live a good, healthy, much better than most of us live in America. What the fuck are we doing? And when I go to work, I can't even change the culture. They say changing the culture wins wars. How'd that work out with the Taliban, America? And even if I wanted to try that, if I went to work tomorrow and said we need more Christianity in the workplace, I'd be fired. Hell, I work with a black guy that goes around assaulting people all the fucking time, and he gets to keep his job because he uses the black card. Now, I know some people probably say that maybe I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but I've been informed by supervisors that is indeed what is actually happening. And I don't doubt it for a second, because it's not like the assaults were the only indicators. There's the abuse of women. There's the assault of smaller, more vulnerable people. There's the lying and manipulating. There's trying to get people fired. And he's allowed to get away with all of it. And for whatever reason, he's running out of departments, and nobody wants to work with him. And they think that I'm going to work with him. I am not. I can't control what the federal government does. I can't control or gather enough conservatives to actually do something that's meaningful. But I'll be damned if I let some fucking retard play the black card and be forced to work with him. I'm not doing that. And enough with this. You don't want a civil war. You don't know what war looks like. We do. Yada, yada, yada. We don't need to have a fucking civil war. We don't even need to have like a mass revolution. You just need a couple. You need a couple good leaders to stand up with enough people that believe in what they're doing is right and will save this country. And then you need a couple politicians' heads. That's it. That's all it would take. You've seen, and this is why I continue to believe that January 6th was a good thing, how frightened, how scared they are. That is how they should be all the fucking time. You don't think for the first 50 years of this country, the politicians, our forefathers, weren't afraid that next week there wasn't going to be a rebellion, that it was going to be their head on the chopping block. The saying tarred and feathered is there for a reason. Yet we've grown too weak, too stupid, really, that the only thing we do is say, wait until the next election. That isn't enough. It hasn't been enough, and it never will be enough. As long as you let a party like the Democratic Party survive and continue to be able to be voted into office, this will continue. The assault weapon ban that passed in the House is not even changed, but maybe a comma or a period from the assault weapon ban that they've tried to pass 15 times before that. And every single time, it gets shot down. You know why? Because it's unconstitutional. The decisions in the Supreme Court just weeks ago only further prove that the assault weapon ban is unconstitutional. Yet Nancy Pelosi wheeled and dealed, used her fucking witch black magic to get it past the House, knowing that it has failed time and time again. You know why she was able to pass it? Because of fear. They also passed an assault weapon ban in 94. They let 20 years pass. That's most of my life. I lived every single year of that 20 years of that assault weapon ban. And you only ever seen citizens saving people with firearms after the assault weapon ban was lifted. The crime through the 90s spiked and continued to grow. Gangs in California flourished in the 90s. You know why? Because they had the guns and the civilians didn't. We didn't live in this idea that we could have our own community. A community that would take veterans that had the training and knowledge and fighting warrior spirit and pass that on to civilians. And it wasn't even a couple of years ago when civilians couldn't own things like chest rigs and body armor. This was a fantasy. If you've seen civilians out doing even a bill drill, just your, a couple shots here, run back, do a couple more shots, even that. And still to this day, in a lot of ranges, you can't do that. Because this idea that citizens would take up arms to defend their lives and their country is somehow crazy. When did we decide that the ideas that our forefathers had were crazy? When did we decide that everything that our forefathers stood for, we were going to let go? I wonder if the same Democrats that spread their tyranny and take our rights today would have been for Britain. I bet you they would have. You know why? Because they're all pussies. They're too afraid, and the only thing they have is power. Which is all the more reason why we should not be afraid of a civil war. It doesn't have to be a war. The people that lead us right now are pussies. The people that hold the power that is destroying our lives right now, they're nothing more than weak, scared little children. And like I said, this is why January 6th was so important. Maybe it wasn't planned. Maybe it was poorly executed. But it showed us just how afraid our politicians are of us, the people. Why do you think they still, to this day, are going after anyone and everyone they can that was involved in January 6th? because they're afraid it's going to happen again. That's why they had to make those people out to be monsters instead of patriots. Well, the same people that call the people that were protesting on January 6th monsters also call us monsters. People who support the Second Amendment. A lot of Christians they consider are monsters. Hell, there are even some white people that consider other white people monsters. There is no more having a conversation with the other side. They are lost. At some point, you just have to cut the limb off or it will destroy the rest of the body. That is where the Democratic Party is now, and we are letting it infect our children. How many of our children are we going to let die from this disease from the Democrat Party? Let's take another scenario just to prove to you how much the Democrat Party actually cares about the American people. I would imagine that nobody has forgot everything that the federal government didn't allow us to do and also forced us to do when COVID happened. The response to COVID was nothing short of probably the biggest tyranny wave the United States has ever seen. Yet now we're supposed to be afraid of monkeypox. And, well, I don't know about now, but in the beginning, all that would have had to happen to stop the spread is for gay men and bisexual men to not participate in homosexual activities. That's it. But not one Democrat came out and said that. The CDC did not come out and say that. And now it's to a point where we can't eradicate monkeypox. It will never happen. I don't know exactly the statistics behind that, but I do know once it has infected so many people, you'll never get rid of it. And the fucktards had enough butt sex that we will forever have to worry about monkeypox. And I'm sure somewhere down the line it will mutate to where it's not only spread through gay sex. There was a case where a child got monkeypox and the uncle had monkeypox and was a gay man, and there wasn't even an investigation on how that happened, knowing that the most common way to pass on monkeypox is gay sex. And we did nothing. A lot of us told people, you know, you want to be for gay rights, you want to usher on the apocalypse, good on you. Go ahead. But one day, they will keep pushing and taking, as does everyone. Every idea, every group of individuals, once you give up an inch, they will take a mile. That's just how humans work. And we told you that. They were going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing to the point where pedophilia was protected. And now it is. Maybe not raping a child per se, but it will get there. But they are allowed to play dress up and strip in front of children and wave and educate 5-year-olds on sex toys and how to stick things in their butt. That is not something we should be letting fester in the United States. And there's a lot of people that say, hey, whatever you're into, man, just keep it in the bedroom. But that wasn't good enough. They had to keep taking. They had to keep pushing. And this is that liberal mindset. It's worked the same with gun rights and gun control. It works the same way with trying to brainwash our children into being transgender. If I had enough money where I knew my family would be safe and secure, right? Because at this point, if I go out and I was to actively do something, I would, A, get capped in the street and that would be it, right? It just, and I would be made a monster in the media. B, I would get caught before I did it and probably spend the rest of my life in jail. And the only people that would suffer are my children and my family. So I would have to either be financially able enough to where my family could continue living a good life without me before I could do something. So whoever wins this $1 billion in this lottery Friday, hopefully it's a well-respected conservative that has somewhat of a voice and cherishes his morals and his beliefs more than money, and uses that money to protect his family and actually fucking do something. Because I tell you what, if I hit the lottery, especially the $1 billion, that's exactly what I would do. I would stand on top of the steps of Congress and not demand that Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden be impeached, but that we built an executioner table on top of those steps with a sign that says tyranny ends here. And I would use the rest of that money to support politicians to pass legislation to where if a member of Congress, the House, the Senate, no matter who, brought a bill that infringed on our constitutional rights, they not just lose their job, but they be executed. Because the idea of taking individual rights away that is protected by our Constitution should not be frowned upon. It should be punished by death. Americans know this. Politicians know this. The way to fight evil is when good men do violence. We have fought a war for 20 fucking years with this mindset. Now we have the evil in our own federal government. Where are those thousands of men that stood up and said, good men will protect from evil no matter what? They're willing to go over and die for foreign wars and foreign countries, but none of us are willing to do it here. And of course, if a couple of people stood up and they immediately got executed, Ruby Ridge style, Waco, whatever, we would be looked at as crazy people, maybe far-right extremists. But I know I'm not the only one. In fact, I believe there are thousands, if not millions, of people that know this to be true. We would only be on the wrong side of history if we lost. If we, the people, regained power in the federal government, it would be no different than the Civil War and the Revolution. I just find it very hard to believe that over 250 years, that every ounce of that patriotism has died. So this is all just to remind you that the message of this podcast is just as much true now as when I started it, and it's only getting worse. In fact, they have flat out openly admitted it. They don't care if it's unconstitutional. They will take our guns. Everybody knows what happens after they take the guns. It's almost like every liberal and person to vote Democrat has never read a history book ever. Stalin, Hitler, all of them. The first thing they did was take the guns. And quite frankly, up in Canada, the same thing is going on right now in front of our own eyes. Yet there are still people dumb enough to say, yeah, we got to take the guns. There are still people dumb enough to vote for someone that says, I'm for the Second Amendment. I just don't think they should own weapons of war. That's the fucking point of the Second Amendment. It is literally there to protect us from the federal government. It is not there to shoot pop cans. It is not there to hunt. It isn't even there for your own personal protection. It is literally there to kill tyrants. Period. That's what it's there for. It is there for war. It is there for killing a president that goes tyrannical. Whether you like to believe it or not, that is exactly why that amendment was there. It wasn't just there to fight militia versus militia. No, it was there for all the militias to fight the federal government with weapons of war. How anyone comprehends the Second Amendment any different than that blows my fucking mind. How all the veterans that support the Second Amendment refuse to see citizens on an equal level when it comes to fighting the federal government blows my mind. Most of them have read the history books. Most of them know that our forefathers weren't generals. They weren't soldiers. But they were when they had to be. This idea that the military should own this, but civilians can't, where does that even come from? When did we develop that mindset? In the Revolution, citizens owned battleships. What was to be the federal government went around asking civilians for weapons of war, for bodies to fight against the British. But now there's this concept that the federal government should always hold a monopoly over the American people. Always and forever. I know there are some people that say that the Capitol Police let those people in on January 6th. And those same people in the same breath say that it's a conspiracy, and if they did do it, they should be charged with a crime. The Capitol Police that let the people in the Capitol on January 6th were obeying their oath. Yes, they are supposed to protect the Capitol, but they are also supposed to kneel before the rights of the people that put them in that position. We the people trump everything. We trump Congress, we trump the president, all of it. As soon as probably an insignificant amount of us disagree and feel like there is tyranny that is being committed, that's enough. That is enough to start physically acting upon that belief. At the very least, being investigated. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole one day talking about this and said, you know, we have the military and we have the police, but we should also have a civilian army that is there not only to protect from the homeland, but to actively be financially supported by tax dollars to protect us against the federal government. And if anyone is to have a monopoly on violence, it should be them. If you work for the federal government in any capacity, you cannot be a part of the civilian army. And the federal army, rank-wise, should be under the civilian army. They don't have to play nice in the sandbox or anything, but I truly believe that's a thing. And the closest we've ever got to that in the modern day, Mike Glover tried to start something called American contingency. Now, for you, any of you that don't know or understand what that might mean, it means if shit goes sideways in America, via the federal government, we have a contingency, a backup plan, a plan B. And really all he was trying to do is make a network where civilians could talk amongst civilians and ex-military and gather and have training events for free and make sure that the people in American contingency was not only well equipped but well trained, and that there was a network of communication that if the federal government was to go completely tyrannical, executing people out in the middle of the street type shit, that we would have at least a dog in the fight. And he started it, I don't know, probably maybe 2 or 3 months before January 6th. And after January 6th, he was completely banished to the point where to continue operating his regular business, he had to completely stop talking about it. I don't even hear him mention it anymore. And it really sounded like, at the very least, it was just that, a plan B. It's not my ideal scenario. Like I said, I think we should have an army prepared to go in the White House and drag a motherfucker out of it. Period. The end. But at the very least, a network for communication amongst civilians in case of anything, a natural disaster, tyrannical government. If California goes any worse, a way to get those good Californians out of that position and start anew. Just a way for civilians to take care of their own when they are crippled by the havoc of the federal government. And even that was seen as too much of a threat. That should tell you all you need to know about the federal government and who is running it, their intentions. Their intentions are to make sure that you are so weak that not only you can never defend yourself, but that you wouldn't even dream of it. They want you so weak that even the most tactical, badass, fucking Navy SEAL motherfucker on social media is telling people, watch what you say. The federal government's listening. I would like to believe those would be some of the first people to stand up and say, hey, I got the fucking axe. When are we going to go do this? But no. So, that's what I wanted to talk about on my birthday. Hopefully, it hits somebody's ears and this idea spreads that we aren't just weak civilians. We can take back this country, and we shouldn't be afraid to say, if we can't do it by elections, if we can't do it at the voting polls, then we will do it in the spirit of our forefathers and knee-deep in politicians' blood. Period. With that, guys, stay safe, stay prepared. I love you guys. God bless. America first. Peace, y'all.